Did you know that if you are buying or selling a home, you can also negotiate the home furnishings? If you're a buyer and you really love a certain sofa or a break front or end tables that a seller has, it never hurts to ask if you might be able to work something out. So the first rule of thumb is don't address any of the furnishings until you have a signed contract and until you're through the inspection period if you are having inspections. Once all of that's done, there's no reason to not approach the seller and ask if they might be willing to part with certain furnishings. Similarly, if you're a seller who knows you don't want to take everything with you, you might approach the buyer or have your agent approach the buyer's agent and say, are there any things that your buyer might want? We're not necessarily taking everything with us. You can be as loose about this as you want and just sort of present it that way, or you can also put together a list. So there are these 14 items that we're offering, or there are these 14 items we as the buyer are interested in having. The other thing happens with the cost. So sometimes somebody's willing to leave something or take something at no cost. Think about this scenario. Seller is downsizing and there is a swimming pool at the current home, the one that you, the buyer, are buying from them. There's a bunch of pool furniture outside. Where they're moving, there is no pool. They're going to have to get rid of that pool furniture unless you want it. So you might say to the seller, would you mind leaving the pool furniture? Now the seller might try to make some money from it and say, well, sure, for $1,000. On the other hand, if the seller is going to have to move it, if you say, no, I'm not paying for it, it's actually going to cost them money to dispose of it or discard it. They either have to go to the dump or have someone take it. So they may just say, okay, we'll just leave it for free. So the costs involved in furnishings that are being left for the buyer depends a lot on everybody's scenario. On the other side, if you're a buyer and you'd like their sofa, and if they don't leave it, you're going to have to go and buy a $4,000 sofa. If they say, yeah, we'll leave it for you for $1,200, depending on its condition, you might think that makes sense. So just realize that furnishings are sometimes negotiable. Of course, there are times when people are taking everything with them. That's understandable, but there are other times when they're not. So no matter which side of the transaction you're on, if you're a seller who maybe wants to be able to leave some things behind, or you're a buyer who potentially would like to have some things that are in the house when you look at it, when the seller has listed it, there's no harm in having your agents have a conversation and just find out what's available and what isn't.